Yeah. What's going on, everybody? It's Enrique here from Novation again. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the Launchpad and Fruity Loops. Thank you so much for tuning in. If it's your first time here, this is a monthly live stream we like to do on basically a bunch of random things Novation, whether it's synths and stuff like that. So feel free to subscribe if you like seeing content like this and want to keep up to date with things like this when we go live. But yeah, so basically we're going to be focusing on the Launchpad. I got the Launchpad Pro here, but everything I'm doing on the Launchpad Pro is applicable to the Launchpad as well as the Launchpad Mini. So if you have any of those and you have FL Studio or Fruity Loops, this will work. And I want to say it's past Fruity Loops 11 is also when they introduced the script for the Launchpad from Novation in there. So, you know, old ones, new ones, as long as you got a good version of the FL Studio, you should be good to go. With that being said, I guess let's go ahead and kind of turn to the screen and focus on how we would connect this over to in FL Studio. So looking at FL, some of you may be familiar with this, but real quick overview, the easiest way to do this, once you plug it in, if you have the latest version of FL Studio, you just go over to Options and then go to MIDI Settings. In here, when we look at MIDI settings, what this is going to do is bring up basically our input and our output of what we have connected to our computer. With the Launchpad Pro, it's going to show up a couple things because we have some more I/O on the back, but on the Launchpad, it should only bring up one option. But in case you're using the Launchpad Pro, look for the Launchpad Pro Live port. Once you've selected it, just make sure you hit Enable. So right now you can see I can turn it off and it's gone. But if I turn it on, boom, it's on. And you want to make sure that the port is set exactly the same. I've had some pretty good luck with 115, but it should work with any port as long as they are the same. So if this is 114, you want to make sure that this is also 114. So depending on where you are and what number you want to use, just make sure that they're the same and you should be good to go. And once you've done that, the last most important thing is to select the controller type. So in here, if I hit this, it'll bring up a bunch of different options. And for me, I want to select the Novation Launchpad Pro, but you may have the Launchpad or the Launchpad MK2. If you have the Launchpad Mini, just select the Launchpad and it'll work just the same. So Launchpad Pro, boom, that's really it. Once I've done that, I can hit Session, or for the Launchpad Pro, go to the Live view, like Ableton Live. And in here you hit Session, and I have all my controls for Fruity Loops. Easy peasy. So now that we've connected the Launchpad to Fruity Loops, let's start making a beat. So if you're familiar with Fruity Loops, basically you work in these, Fruity Loops is crazy. There's a million ways to work in Fruity Loops. So you can kind of do a bunch of different things. One of my favorite ways to work in Fruity Loops is using the patterns down here. So right now I got a simple 1-bar pattern and I have my FPC thrown up, and in here, FPC, I got my drum samples, right? So what's cool is as long as I have this track selected, I can select the 4th button down and it'll bring up my drum pads right here. So these 16 pads in the red mimic or mirror what the 16 pads are on the FPC. So we got our side stick, kick drum, closed hat, open hat. And on the Pro, this is one thing that the Pro has that the regular Launchpad doesn't, is velocity sensitivity. So kind of helps add some dynamics to your beats. And in that, what we're looking at with the Launchpad line with FL Studio, there's a bunch of different screens and stuff, right, that kind of go on. Basically, device will be to press play. Red button will hit record. You can kind of see it up in the transport section of FL Studio, right? If I want to stop, I hit the user button. That'll be stop. So play, stop, record. Pretty simple. The other cool thing is if I page around in here, what I'm paging through is if I hit session, this will take me to the main like program page. I can hit these buttons on the side, and each one is a different page. So this is different keys or the drum samples in the FPC. And if I go, let's say here, these are faders. I can assign these faders to do whatever I want within FL Studio. And FL Studio has a really good mapping section, which we'll turn into a little later when it comes to controlling some of the VSTs within it. But a quicker way to jump through these is just using the arrow keys. So I can actually go and access a bunch of different things here. So on this page, for example, if I press play, I can turn on my metronome pretty quick. I can slow down my tempo by 5 at a time. So let's go down to 100. Actually, let's go to 95. Let's go right there. Now I can go back to here, which are drums, right? Just hit record, or already hit record on accident. Cool, that'll work. Let's throw us a little snare in there. Easy. So turning record off, I can go back, turn the metronome off. And if you get used to it, it's pretty quick. You can just go session, back to where you last were. Let's see. Simple. So now that we got a little beat going, basically you can see it down in our pattern section here on the screen. Easy peasy. Hit device, pause the track, or hit user to stop and restart from the beginning of the pattern. What I'm going to do next is hit this plus button, throw in something like, let's throw in the SAR. It's one of my favorite synths on here. Cool, so now we got the SAR, same thing. Could be controlled from here, but there's other ways of controlling sound. So this is just the 16 pads, which applies to the FPC or other little drum kind of sampler sequencers in FL. If I keep going over to the right, you'll see this, which looks like a bunch of keyboards, technically 4 octaves. So we have the black keys. Then we also have the white keys. So you can do. Let's turn the filter up on that a little bit and turn that resonance down. Same thing, press play. Easy. So, I mean, from there, you basically just start making a track however you would using the patterns view, and then you take those patterns and put them through the track section as you would expect, you know, basically just making a track in FL Studio. It's just nice to have the ability to kind of go in and do a couple things here and there on the Launchpad, like play the keys, change your tempo. There's even a mixer page. You can do things like that and control the sound. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how you can control some of the sounds in FL Studio. So let's take this SAR, right? We'll go back to our little patterns here and click on the SAR. So if I go to the notes, cool. So in here, if I find a fader page, let's say this page here, I can say this button here on the screen, this is going to be the multi-link to controllers. If you're familiar with other DAWs, it's kind of like MIDI mapping. So you click that, it's red, you move what you want to control, let's say cutoff, and then I just move this. Now you can see my cutoff is moving to this here. And what's awesome is that I can actually record the automation of me moving this. So if I press play, if I just hit it, if I don't like that, hit record again. Same thing. Cool, dope. Let's throw in something else, just because I'm having some fun here. Let's throw in a mini synth. Oh yeah, I like this one. Oops, I turned the loop off. Cool, so let me go ahead and turn that back on. Sweet, where's that one at? Oh, I just extended the pattern length. Let me go ahead and fix that real quick. Select, cool. So it's pretty much as simple as that when it comes to making a track in FL Studio. Throw it in the patterns, make your patterns, jump them out, throw them over into the track mode, and you're pretty much good to go. As far as controlling VSTs, some of the faders and stuff will be mapped already when you get this, and there's a ton of faders on this thing. So if you just cycle around through here, you have, for example, these here, which can do a bunch of different, almost like XY style stuff. These are just left and right faders, up and down faders. Then you have a page with up and down and left and right faders. Like, you can do a bunch of crazy stuff. There's even some modes, like you can play the keyboard like this, if you're familiar with this, which is basically more of just utilizing all the 8 pads, but chromatically. So then it's here. This is a fun way to kind of hit 4 octaves with one hand, kind of cool. There's a bunch of different ways and modes to play with this. And in the description after the video, we'll put a link to some documentation of what all the screens mean. And this is also completely free. So you basically just get the script from ImageLine, which makes FL Studio, and it should honestly come with FL Studio already if you have it installed. So you don't even have to really download anything. But after the video, we'll put a link in the description. And if you're watching this after the live stream, look at the link in the description. It'll show you all the documentation of what all these screens actually can do. And there's a lot of it, and I don't want to go through all of it because we'll be here forever, way too long. So when it comes to controlling VSTs, as simple as hitting the MIDI map button, select the knob that you want to control, save it, it'll be saved to the project. Next time you plug it in, you're good to go. So I'm going to jump over into a new session, yeah? This one's going to be called Playing a Beat. And what we're going to be doing in this is, you guessed it, playing a beat. So basically, prior to this, I've gone and taken a sample of like a track that I made a long time ago. And there's a couple ways of actually playing a beat within FL Studio. And by default, you can kind of chop up your sounds in FL Studio to do a bunch of different things. Let's see how this one will do. Oh, you know what? I think I made this on my hard drive. That's totally fine. It's just super quick. It's actually probably better to show you how to do this from the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Finder, Desktop, and I'm going to grab this track. So this is going to be, boom. So this is now a track that I've made a while back. And instead of just being able to go and play this beat, if you will, let's see. Cool, so now we have this beat here. If I press play, we'll be able to play it. So you can see our tempo's at 130. This is not where the track was made at. I'm gonna slow this down and you'll be able to see the waveform kind of move. I made this song, so I already know it's at 80. But a way to tell is if you look at these transients here, these should line up with the beats for the most part. So if I move this down to 80, you'll see that beat number 2 over here, the bar 2 is lined up perfectly. Simple. So once we've kind of lined up the tempo on our track, you just hit this little arrow and you go to chop. And I want to chop this time-based by beats. Boom. That's all it's taken. Just chopped it up by time-based by beats, and now every beat has been chopped. So in FL Studio, a fun way to do this is if you turn on performance mode, and then you go to Tools, Macros, Prepare for Performance Mode, hit yes, it says it's going to tweak for best results, totally fine. If I zoom out a bit, look at that, pad 1, pad 2, pad 3. What this is referring to is the Launchpad Pro, so 7 and 8. And this is the track where the track part starts. So we want to be messing around with patterns, not the song, so I'm going to turn on pattern play instead of song play. And in that, I can go and basically grab these pieces and put them into the pads. And when I did that, you can see that this pad now lit up. So if I press this pad and press play, it should trigger this, but it's going to trigger this on like a weird step, basically because it's going to be quantized to whatever the step is. So I'm going to want to quantize it to a quarter step. Actually, you know what? We'll leave that on a step, but in the track itself, this is where you can have some performance settings. So all I've done is right-click this. It'll bring up some performance settings, and you can say hold and stop, hold and motion, re-trigger. I kind of like re-trigger, and I like to re-trigger on a quarter beat. And then on top of that, I also like it to play one shot, because if you have it on stay, it's just going to keep looping. So let's see. Pressing play. Let me turn on performance mode. Let me select this. Let me select some more clips so we don't just hear one thing, so it's not extremely boring. Grab these clips. I'm going to throw them into track 2 just so I have easier access to them. And now that that's there, we'll zoom into this little section. Let's say, how about here? Cool. Put this here. Right click that. So now I can grab this, put this on pad 2, and you'll see that my Launchpad starts to populate. And basically I'm just putting little pieces here, throwing them onto the, with the little magnet strip so that it's really easy to line them up. And this is going to be playing by beats. So boom, there's the 8 pads, and then if I wanted to continue the track, I can bring them down here and put them right below. And you can even build this up in any specific order or any specific way. This is another fun way to chop up samples if you want to chop up samples and kind of throw them in, because you can also set the chopping mode by transients. That way it's not specific to a beat, and you can kind of get some really cool movement in the pad itself. So that's that. There's that. Pressing play. Let's see. Turn this off. Now why aren't you going? There it is. So basically in there, I've been able to chop this up, and I'm trying to put my own swing on it, but I need to remember to play this to the beat that I chopped it. Otherwise, I'm going to be throwing the beat off itself. So if I play this back, it's just going to keep playing this, right? Oh, right. So see, this is what I was talking about earlier. If you don't change the settings on track 2, track 1, I've set the settings for the performance mode, but track 2, I haven't. So if I go into track 2 and I right-click this, same performance settings, we want to set it up to however we like it. We can do by 1 beat, by half a beat. I'll do by half a beat, so it'll kind of help me get used to playing it a little slower rather than quicker, trying to put my own swing onto things. One shot. You can even do hold and stop, which is kind of fun. That way, it's only as you hold down the pad. And that's pretty much it. So now if I go and play these and press play, turn this one off. See, it's only as I hold it, but if I let it go early, it's going to stop it on the half bar or the half beat. So back to the beginning. So what's cool about this is basically, depending on how long the chop is that you've set up to be in these scenes, that'll indicate how many pads it takes up. So with that being said, you can actually put your tracks in here. So if you wanted to use this as backing tracks and kind of play some scenes, you could just press that and it'll do its thing. It'll play the track through. Or if you want to do it the way that I've done it, it just kind of allows you to perform your track live a little better than you're normally used to. So if you have some beats in FL, you do that, or you just set up another track and record yourself playing this stuff in, or record it as a new pattern. There's just a bunch of different ways to use FL Studio and use any of the launch pads with it. I mean, it really just comes down to your personal preference. If you're used to FL and you like using it a specific way, there's a simple way to use any Launchpad with it. If you're new to FL and you want to try a new way of making music, there's a bunch of different ways to do that as well. But other than that, I mean, it's really kind of it. There's not too much it's kind of hard to explain because FL can do so much. You could take it in any direction you want, but the cool thing is no matter which direction you go in, Launchpad will always have a role to play in there. So again, depending on how you make it, if you're already used to that, or if you want to try doing some weird stuff that we've been doing here, you know, messing around with different settings of the tracks and how they play and chopping things up. The cool thing here is you still have access to your song mode. So if I zoom out of this, I still have song mode that starts over here. So if I press play, it's going to keep playing. And if I throw in some tracks over here, this will start playing, right? So watch, click it, pause, play. Basically, I can have this set up to play, and this will be muting itself out while this plays, or I can have other things here and I can be playing on top of it with what I set up in the Launchpad. So again, there's a million different ways to use this thing. You always have the session view, which you can kind of go back and look at a bunch of different things. And in here, even going into sessions, you can see basically the pads and what it looks at on the screen over here and kind of what cell we're looking at within itself. So yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not much to it. For time's sake, we're gonna, I guess you can say, skip the Q&A on this part, but that does not mean we're not answering questions. So for all those of you who do have questions, throw them into the chat or throw them into the comments below, and we'll be answering these as soon as we can. But until next time, I'm Enrique from Novation. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And yeah, again, we'll see you next month on the next live stream. So until then, peace.